Yeah, I think it is 6:30 now. So as and when the participants are joining, and so Sangeeta, Archana, can we have you back at our webinar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Sripal?
Yes, Sangeeta, Archana, guys, are you able to hear us properly? Kiran, Amarjeet, so we're just testing whether you're able to hear us properly. Archana and Sangeeta, we are not able to see your video. So if you could just switch on that or something like that. Okay. So I think we are able to see that. Okay. Archana, I think we have lost Archana here. So if you can just see if Archana is also online now. Yeah. So first of all, good evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As and when the participants are joining, and we don't want the panelists to be waiting, and we don't want others who have joined in at time to waste much of their time. And we straight away start with our session today on HRCI. This is the first time we are doing it in India, an exclusive event on HRCI certification courses. We are extremely proud to have JD with us, Bharat with us, Archana with us, who's from Infosys, and I myself was an Infosys alumni. So I'm glad to have a person from Infi as well. And again, over to you, Sangeeta, to kind of give a brief about JD, Bharat, Archana, and then we can take it up from there for our various HR certifications. The entire objective of this program is to create an awareness about these certifications and why this is such an important part today to upgrade yourself with this valuable certification. So JD will take it forward, and then from there, Bharat and Archana would add in. Over to you, Sangeeta. Thank you so much, guys.
I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our speakers, Mr. Dr. Archana Arcot, Mr. Veer Bharat, and JD. Also, thank each one of you who have attended our grand launch of HR certification in alliance with HRCI. So, JD is currently the Director of International Business Development and Partnership at HRCI. He has been with HRCI for over 3 years now. And he holds a BA in International Studies and MA in Public Administration. And he also holds a APHRI, which is Associate Professional in Human Resource International. Dr. Archana Arcot brings about 20 plus years of global HR experience. And she is currently the Associate Vice President, Head Client Business and Talent Integration at Infosys. She holds a doctoral program in Human Resources, MBA in Human Resources, and also holds a Global Professional Human Resources, that is GPHR certification. Then Mr. Veer Bharat is our next speaker, who is an HR professional with a PhD in Human Resource Management and have a 14 plus years of experience handling strategic and operational corporate HR roles. He's currently working as HR business partner head at Yamaha Motor Solution and is globally recognized as senior profession in human resources international, that is SPHRI through HRCI. So as now I'll hand over the webinar to panelists. Attendees can put your questions in the chat box and you can even raise your hands. And thank you JD, Archana ma'am and Veer sir for taking out your time from your busy schedule. And now I'd like to hand over the webinar to JD.
Yeah. Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you, Sripal, and thank you to Simandhar Education for hosting this webinar, this informative session to speak about the HRCI certifications that are available in the market in India. I'm going to go through a presentation that I have that explains some of the certifications that are relevant in the Indian market and some of the resources that you can find through HRCI. So I'm going to go fairly quickly through that. Any of the information that I'm going to provide is available on the website. But what I'm most excited about for this session is to have the opportunity to share some of the benefits and the value that the certification has for professionals in HR in India. And that's where Veer and Archana are going to be able to speak specifically about their experience, why they got the certification, when they got it, and how has been their experience through that certification. So let me go ahead and share the presentation that I have ready for you today. Hope everybody can see that now.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm going to go through what is HRCI as an organization, what is the role that we have for the HR professionals worldwide, the different certifications that we have available that you might be interested in India, the process of recertification, I'll touch on some of the benefits of the certification for the individual and for the organization. And finally, I want to just explain a little bit more beyond the certifications. What is it that HRCI can be relevant to you in your everyday jobs as HR practitioners? And then at the end, we can have some questions that I'll be happy to answer related to the certifications themselves, to what HRCI is all about, or to some of those benefits that I want to make sure that we spend some time discussing. So HRCI has been around for over 40 years. In those 40 years, we've certified over 500,000 people all over the world in over 125 different countries. One of the things that we're most proud of is the fact that 93% of Fortune 500 companies include professionals in HR who are HRCI certified. That means that we're virtually everywhere in the world, in all the main companies that you can think of. If you look around, you might have somebody who's an HRCI certification holder and you don't even know about it. And as we all know, there's different certifications, even certificates, diplomas, courses. What I want to make sure that you all understand is that our certifications, HRCI certifications worldwide, are 5 times more requested than any other certification. So when you compare some of the different things that are available out there for your professional development in HR, just know that HRCI is, at the end of the day, better known than some of the others that you might have a little bit easier to access. What is HRCI dedicated to? So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is to improve people and organizations. And how does that happen? That happens through being involved in what is the process that organizations are involved in, about the business, about the talent that you deal with every day, about aligning the work and the job descriptions with what the organization is dedicated to, about people relationships, and really about being in touch with what's going on in the world around us, and how to manage all that in a way that is agile and that there's trustworthiness when it comes to how to make that happen. HRCI has 8 different certifications. Of those 8 different certifications, I'm going to focus on the ones that are relevant in India because of their international and global aspects. 7 of those 8 certifications are accredited by the NCCA. This is the National Commission for Certifying Agencies in the United States. But within those, we have 2 of them, the PHRI and the SPHRI, which are the international certifications that have been developed following the ISO 17024 standard. And that means that our program are developed in a way that makes sense with what any organization is doing all over the world. So we're very proud to say that this is not just a certification that we have come up with and people think is valuable. This is something that is a third body that is overlooking at our processes, our programs, and that can validate that what we're doing is actually according to international standards. And that's something that not all certifications are following. So that's something to mention that we're very proud of. So when it comes to the certifications that I want to focus on today, there's 4 of them. The APHRI, which is the entry-level certification, the PHRI, which is the operational mid-level certification, the SPHRI, which is the senior, most strategic certification, and the GPHR, which is the true global certification because it involves working across different countries. And as a matter of fact, the GPHR, I'm going to spend a little more time today on because there's a few changes that are affecting this specific certifications, and some of those changes are actually going to benefit Indian professionals quite substantially. So first, let's start about the APHRI, Associate Professional in Human Resources International. This is the certification that I have, as Sangeeta mentioned. I don't come from an HR background, and the reason why I took the certification was, of course, to kind of get familiar with what the process is with the certification. It's meant for people who are starting their career in HR, but at the same time, this is also for someone who doesn't have any knowledge of HR. We always think of managers, leaders of teams that have to manage different people, so that they have an understanding of what is HR all about, so that when they talk to the HR department, they're familiar with the language, with some of the main practices that any HR department is going to be talking about. The requirements for this certification are actually, is very accessible. All you need is a high school diploma or a secondary global education. So you don't even need to have a single year of college education. And there's no requirement in terms of prior HR experience. So virtually everyone can have access to this. And it's one of the certifications that we highly encourage people to have when they start their career in HR, showing that they not only have some interest, but they also have a commitment by getting a professional certification. Here you can see the different sections of the exam. So this is what we call the functional areas of the exam content outline. The exam has 100 questions. Most of them are multiple choice. 25 questions are always added to a test for the next iteration of the exam, so that those questions are not valid, but we just kind of make sure that we understand what is the response that people are having to those questions. And you can take the exam in 2 hours and 15 minutes. So the percentages that you see, it kind of breaks down the focus of the exam. So that means that 33% of the exam is in HR operations. That means that you're gonna have to study more about HR operations, that you're gonna have to study about health, safety, and security, which is only 5%. So that gives you an idea of how you need to break down your time in terms of study for the exam. So this is just the overall functional areas. But when you go into the HRCI website and you look for the exam content outline for the APHRI, you will see that there's 4 or 5 pages of the exam content outline that breaks down even more the different sections, HR operations, recruitment, and selection. So you can see what is it that includes within those different sections. Just wanted to explain that as I go through the different certifications. The next level up is the PHRI, Professional Human Resources International. For this one, we do require some level of HR experience. So depending on the level of education that you have, you're gonna need different levels, different years of HR experience. If you only have a high school diploma, 4 years of HR experience are gonna be required. If you have a bachelor's degree, then we're talking about 2 years of HR experience. And if you have a master's or higher, just 1 year necessary in HR. And by HR, we mean truly HR, not just administrative tasks. So it has to be something that involves payroll management or some sort of direct involvement in the HR department. And here you can see the breakdown of the functional areas for the exam content outlined. As you can see, there's 145 score questions, and you have 3 hours and 15 minutes. The SPHRI is the highest level, is the most strategic certification, the Senior Professional Human Resources International. This one, just like the PHRI, requires some level of HR experience. And what that means is that with a high school diploma, you're going to need at least 7 years of HR experience. With a bachelor's, you're going to need 5 years. And with a master's or higher, you're going to need 4 years of HR experience. So some people might think, well, I should just go ahead and get the certification because I've been in HR for a long, long time. Absolutely, you're probably just available to take this exam. But what I always ask is, if you have always done HR in one specific area, if you have only done compensation and benefits and for 20 years maybe, and all of a sudden you want to go to the next level, you're probably going to have some difficulties just because some of the components that are involved in this exam are maybe not that familiar to you, because we're talking in this case about business leadership, we're talking about policy and analysis, and some of those things might not be something that you've been involved in. So be ready to study for those components, even if you have plenty of experience in the HR field. So for this exam, there's only 4 functional areas, 105 score questions, 2 hours and 30 minutes for the exam. And then finally, the GPHR, which, as I mentioned, is the true global certification, the Global Professional Human Resources. This was actually the original certification that HRCI launched back in 2005 when globalization was at its peak. This is when we realized that different economies, different regional forces in North America, in the European Union, in Asia, had a certain level of regulations that would affect cross-country. And we realized that many multinational corporations work in multiple countries. I bet that some of you do HR for India, for Bangladesh, for Pakistan, and a whole different region of countries with very different set of rules when it comes to how to treat employees and some of the policies for the organization. So this is what this certification is for. As you can see, the requirements for this certification with high school diploma is at least 4 years of HR experience. With a bachelor's is 3 years of HR experience, and with a master's degree of higher is 2 years of experience. And here you can see the different components of the exam content outline. As you can see, it's truly dedicated to what is international HR. 140 questions score and 3 hours for the exam. Now, what I was mentioning earlier in terms of some of the changes, so until April this year, you actually needed to have this experience in HR, not only in HR, but it had to be cross-country HR. That meant that you had to work in at least 2 different countries. That's no longer the case. If you have only worked in India in HR for 4 years and you have a high school diploma, you can have access to this exam now. So this is already implemented. That really opens the availability of this exam to many people who have only worked in India and are looking to maybe work in some additional countries and get this global certification. The other component that has changed is the actual exam content outline. This exam content outline that I'm showing here is the one that is current, that is relevant right now. But the one that is going to be available October 1st, so in just 1 month, is going to be the one that appears on the right side of your screen. The one on the left is the one that is right now. But I bet if that is somebody is considering this exam, you're most likely going to study for the one on the right-hand side. So we have adjusted this exam because, as you can imagine, the HR profession globally is changing so quickly that every 3 years or so, we try to update the components of the exam. So this is the exam that will be changing in less than 1 month. In addition to that, HRCI started providing online testing earlier this year in light of the pandemic and the difficulties for candidates accessing the test centers. So starting October 1st, just for the GPHR exam, we're going to activate online testing. So not only are we going to have a new exam content outline that is updated to the new reality in HR globally, but we're also going to make it available so that you can take the exam from home on your laptop or on your office without having to go to a local test center. So those are some of the most important things that I wanted to communicate today regarding the GPHR. And the reason why I think the GPHR is so relevant is because in my experience, having looked at the numbers for India, about 60% of the people who are taking HRCI certifications are taking the GPHR. So that's when I'm realizing that this is a very relevant certification for Indian HR professionals. So something that I wanted to leave there, and I'll be happy to discuss later some of the details if you have any questions. When it comes to taking the exam, as I mentioned, only the GPHR will be available online in October, but the other exams, you have to go to a Pearson test center. Pearson View is our testing partner. On the right side of the screen, you can see the different cities where we have activated test centers. We would be able to activate additional test centers if there's need, but at the moment, the demand that we're seeing in candidates is only coming from these cities. So what that means is that when you schedule your exam, you're going to have to go to one of these local Pearson test centers, which you can find on the Pearson View website, or when you submit your application for the exam, and it gives you the address of where the test center is located, and you can schedule the exam for a specific hour. The experience is a very secure environment. As you can see, you're going to be monitored on cameras, making sure that nobody's cheating, making sure that you have a clean, safe environment, and making sure that the time and the experience is the same. So that's one of the things that we say about HRCI is the highest standards that we have for our exams. We always aim to make sure that regardless of where you're taking the exam, whether it's in India or in the United States or anywhere in the world, the experience of taking the exam is always going to be the same. It's the same exam, it's going to be the same experience with the same level of security. And then once you take the exam and you pass the exam and you become HRCI certified, how do you stay relevant? Is this one exam that you take once in your lifetime and you're done? The answer is no. And this is where the recertification process comes in place. For these 4 certifications that I've been talking about, you need to recertify every 3 years. And you do that by either taking the exam all over again. Very few people want to take the exam all over again, or accumulating what we call credit hours. And those credit hours can be received through everyday work that you do in your positions, attending conferences, webinars, and reading books, and some of the content that is out there in the HR space that keeps you in touch with what is the reality of the HR profession and how things are updating. And HRCI is one of the resources that we have available for you to make sure that you keep up to date. And as a matter of fact, on our website, you can have a directory of thousands of what we call approved providers. These are organizations that provide recertification credits so that you can have access to that recertification for 3 hours. Now, depending on the certification that you have, you're going to need a certain number of recertification credits. For the APHRI is 45 general credits. For the PHRI, SPHRI, and GPHR is 6 credits total. And for the Senior Professional in Human Resources International in the GPHR, you will need 15 specific credits for business and 15 for global for the GPHR. And the reason for that is because, as I mentioned, these are very senior strategic certifications that need to put you in touch with an additional part of the HR profession, which is the business and the global environment, which is not something that you can have access to on your everyday job unless you're very involved in those areas. The other thing that I wanted to mention today is how the certifications are not just beneficial to you as an HR professional, as an individual, but also to the organizations. Once you get the certification, you're also benefiting your company. This is something that I want to touch on for a little bit. When it comes to the actual certification, the certifications are very valued among HR professionals. Anybody who is in HR is probably eventually going to talk to you about certifications, whether it's HRCI or any of the others that are available. Some countries have their own national certification. In Australia, in Canada, they have their national certifications. But when you talk about international, when you talk about interacting with people from other countries who are also in HR, there's going to be only a few credentials that are going to be in that space. So just be aware that eventually you're going to have to consider something. When are these certifications valuable to the HR professional? Usually at the beginning. So the APHRI is one of the reasons why we think that this is a valuable certification. And also for HR consultants, how do you show that you have the mastery, that you have the control of the HR policies? Is through throwing the certification. But also employers, as you probably know, people in HR do really hard work, but sometimes bosses and the executive management do not necessarily know exactly what is it that HR is doing, or how do you know that you have a good HR professional. So all they know is, show me something that tells me that you are a good HR professional. And usually that's what a professional certification is showing. It's kind of backing you up and saying, I know what I'm talking about. I have the expertise to make this happen. So it's almost a standard requirement that many countries and many companies are going to require in order to show that you're in compliance. Specifically about how this is a benefit to you as a professional. I would say that you can, regardless of the benefit, you can probably put these in 5 different sections. The competitive advantage that it gives you as an HR professional versus other colleagues. The recognition from your colleagues in HR and from your employer. The network of HR professionals that you're going to have access to, other people who are HRCI certified, and the forums that come with that designation, with that credential, and how it assists you in your career progression. Once you have the certification, we have seen there's data that shows that you're going to get to the next level faster, and you're going to get additional income faster than any other professionals. And then it shows just the mastery of knowledge that you have in HR. So some of these benefits can be mentioned specifically in things like, it gives you the confidence to be recognized as a professional. It also helps you to expand your understanding of the HR. Like I said, if you have spent 20 years doing compensation and benefits, you're doing HR, but you really don't know what else you can be doing and how else you can contribute to your organization. So by taking the certification, it's widening your knowledge of what's available out there. And in doing so, you're also getting additional ideas of how you can benefit your organization and how you can protect your organization from potential issues and making sure that you're in compliance with the regulations. Here's some data on what I was just referring to. So a few years ago, we had a study that showed the United States, because that's where we have most of the people certified, and outside of the United States. And let me just focus on the first 5. We asked them, what are the reasons why you decided to get certified? So most people, as you can see, over 50% in the US and outside, said to increase the knowledge of HR that I have. I want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. And until recently, in some countries, there wasn't even college degrees in HR. So certifications were the way in which people could show that they had the mastery of HR. Also to strengthen your CV, to make sure that you have a solid background in HR. Also just to make sure that everything that you know about HR is up to date and is in compliance with what's going on out there. And simply just showing that you're committed to HR. In many countries, HR is kind of like a profession that people who are doing admin end up going into. But other people are very dedicated to the HR because they know that this is how you're truly making organizations change and to really benefiting people that you care about. So just something that I wanted to share with you to show also how the US and the rest of the world are not too far apart in terms of why this certification matters. Specifically, I wanted to show some data about the PHR and the SPHR. These are the certifications specifically for the United States, the certifications that have US legislation. These certifications are not available in India. They don't make sense in India, but I wanted to show how the comparison is it's quite similar. So we asked people, did the certification PHR help you to get a new job? Over 78% of people said, yes, it definitely did. It was advantageous. Did it help you to increase your salary? Over 41% said yes. And did it help you with the job promotion? Over 50%. And the same thing happened for the SPHR, the senior position. Very similar numbers, again, with the same thing, getting a new job, a salary increase, and job promotion. So as you can see, there's a direct correlation between getting the certification and some of these responses. Again, these numbers are just for the United States. We don't have enough data to show India or to show the overall world, but I wanted to show how the numbers and the approach is very similar. Then we asked them, was the SPHR and the PHR a good investment for you? And if you combine absolutely worth the investment and very much worth the investment, over 70% fall in that category. So anybody who went through the process has said that this is something that they would definitely recommend. And I often hear from people, I have a master's in HR and that's nothing compared to the value that my HRCI certification provided me. So that's something that I think really shows what it's all about. In addition, just in terms of the benefit to the individual, higher annual income, faster growth, higher career satisfaction. Once you've been recognized, it kind of makes you feel better about it. And just it provides you additional job opportunities when you get the certification. But we also want to talk about how this benefits your organization. Quite often, as I mentioned, some organizations say, how is this going to be something that benefits my organization? So this is specifically outside of the United States. And what we saw is that when people get the certification, it gives the confidence that they need to their employers to realize that the HR professional really knows what they're talking about. It shows the commitment to learning, which, you don't want somebody who's doing the job sitting in the chair for 20 years and doing nothing else. You want somebody who's active, who wants to get to the next level. So that's kind of what it's talking about. And it also shows the effectiveness of the professional in the job. And something that I think is quite important is the alignment. If you get one person who is HRCI certified, that's beneficial to the HR department and to the organization. But if you have more than one, all of a sudden you're all talking about the same language. You're kind of understanding the concepts in the same way, and you're going to be way more effective as an HR team. And here's some data, again, specifically about the benefit to the certification in the United States and outside of the United States. Very similar numbers again. So just to show that just because India might be a different market, the perspective of what this is beneficial to is quite similar. Increase the engagement of the employees, great employer satisfaction, increase productivity. If you tell these things to your employer, you're definitely going to get some support to probably getting access to the certification. And the reason why I mentioned this is because over 50% of people in the United States, when they apply for the exam, they're funded by their employers. I don't know if that's the case in India, if there's budget for professional development, but in the United States, it's quite helpful. So just something to say, this is not something that I'm paying for myself. Maybe my employer can help me because at the end of the day, I'm benefiting the organization. Okay, so you decide that you want to take your certification. How you to make this happen? First thing, go to hrci.org and create a profile. You select the exam that is good for you based on the requirements that I have mentioned before. You schedule the exam in one of the Pearson test centers or online if it's for the GPHR. You get ready for the exam through the different preparation resources available, including Simandhar Education. You take the test, you pass the exam, and then you earn your credential. When you earn your credential, you receive a digital badge, something that you can put on your LinkedIn profile, on your signature. When people click on that, it takes them to a website that shows when did you get certified, in what areas of HR did you get certified, and how long is that certification good for. The other thing that I wanted to mention is HRCI beyond certifications has what we call micro-credentials. We call this set of micro-credentials upskills. And these are things that you can take online. You don't have to go to any test center. You don't have to have any prior experience in anything. These are self-paced. You can take on your laptop, on your mobile, whatever you want. And there are different areas in which you can take this on. Risk management, confidentiality and technology, workforce analytics, social media, and there's going to be additional micro-credentials coming up in the future. You receive also digital badges like the one that you can see in the top right corner. And it's just one of the newest things that HRCI has come up with to help HR professionals. In addition to that, we have our learning catalog beyond HR, as you can see, in all kinds of different areas for professional development, also self-paced, also online, no need for any prior experience in any area, and you get online certificates that you can add to your curriculum. And finally, just in terms of resources, the HRCI is known for the HR body of knowledge. This is a book that I call is kind of like the encyclopedia of HR. It's available online as an ebook if you want to. We started to host webinars under the series Alchemizing HR. Almost every week, you're going to be able to get these webinars if you go to the website. There is information on that. And a very popular blog, HR Leads Business, which kind of connects the HR practice with the business of the organization. And one of the free things that I wanted to give you today, if you're not aware of it, the ebook, The Rise of HR. This is a book that has already a few years, but it talks about HR leadership from 73 leaders from all over the world. This is a free ebook that you can download right now. If you go to The Rise of HR, you'll be able to download this book. And it's quite relevant to some of the things that are happening these days in terms of the challenge to organizations to adapt to the new reality. So that's all I have for you today. There's a QR code on the screen if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can answer any specific questions that you might have. And always get in contact with Simandhar Education if you want to know more about the certifications or the preparation process. And I think now I'm just gonna turn it over to the people who actually hold the certifications that are meaningful so that we can talk about how this can benefit you specifically.
Sure.
So I'm going to turn it over to Archana.
Okay, thanks, JD. Fantastic. I like that free book, The Rise of HR. I think it's so apt and it's so titled. So first of all, good evening, everyone. This is Archana here. Very happy to be connecting on this platform. I think there's never a better time to be able to come forward and bring a curriculum like this, like the way HRCI is doing, and this partnership with Simandhar is just going to kind of look at enhancing or accelerating the HR network in the India market. So a little bit about what I wanted to talk about is from the world of work. Two or three big trends. JD spoke a lot about what we have as a great certification course, its benefits, its advantages, etc. But how does that apply to you, and what can you make use of? So two, three big trends that are happening, right, from an India market perspective. First is India has become a big business hub today. There's tech, there's services, there's innovation, there's design, there's R&D. And post COVID-19, the whole supply chain equation of where supply chain is going to get housed, that dynamics are also fundamentally shifting. What that means is a lot more corporations are coming into India. There are a lot more companies setting up business hubs, which means the opportunity for us within the world of HR, within the Indian context, is going to go through a big shift. So that's the first big message, that India is becoming a big global business hub. It's already been on the rise. And you'll be, so that's kind of creating a shift in terms of the role HR has to play, because you're suddenly looking at corporations that are global, workforce that is, global, etc. So that's the first one. The second big trend that I see, which will again apply to you from an India market perspective, is the fact that with the advent of digital, which we've all been speaking about, and I think the whole COVID-19 has taught us a biggest lesson that everything is going to be remote. The world of work, virtualization at the workplace is going to be huge, which means the whole talent equation. I mean, we've been talking of the world of work, we've been talking about the future of work, we've been talking about remote gig. All of us have been talking a lot about this for the last 4 or 5 years. But COVID-19 kind of jump-started that in a very, very big way. So suddenly the whole world is gravitated towards a virtualization of work. And today, as companies look at talent strategies, the whole talent equation has shifted, which means where you're going to be getting talent is going to become boundaryless. and it's going to become extremely borderless, which means again that applies to you as HR, because you're going to be dealing with workforce, new businesses, multicultural workforce, because now the talent equation has shifted. So companies are starting to strategize and say, I don't necessarily need to look at talent market. So all of that was we were speaking about within the world of HR is truly come alive in a very, very big way. So one is the business equation has shifted. The talent equation has clearly shifted. So we will actually, companies will start looking to go to markets where they can, historically we've gone to markets where you have talent, but today you will organize your world or your talent equation in a very different construct. So that's the next big trend from a talent equation. Now, how does this apply to HR folks, right? What this is going to really do is suddenly bring suddenly the role expectations has shifted. You're suddenly talking about companies that are global, so you need to understand global business problems. What are the global strategies, the global thinking? Workforce has become multicultural or borderless, so how do you be able to solve for that? Which means HR folks who are looking to aspire for a global exposure career is now become a reality, right? I moved to the US in close to 2012, and at 2011, HRCI, we did a tutorial and HRs with HRCI, and we were able to bring this whole certification forward. And since the last 10 years, I've been able to keep my GPHR credits, and some of the new things JD spoke about, skills, staying connected. I think in today's world of virtual, this is just a fantastic time to start recognizing what it is. The other big thing, and I think JD also spoke about this, is for any of you as HR, if you're looking for a global career, yeah, you're looking to move to the US, your company has opportunities, there are mergers, acquisitions, you're looking to migrate to Canada or you're looking to migrate to Australia, this framework will still be relevant. What I mean by that is the way way the HRCI curriculum is structured, whether it's PHR, SPHR, or GPHR, there is a certain framework or the skeleton of how you should be looking at HR roles in any of these regions. There are contents that can vary within US, there are contents that can vary. The global GPHR, of course, has a global lens to it. But once you understand and undertake a certification like this, it gives you a good view or lens of the one country's landscape, and then you're able to apply HR in that context. So just because you're in India, it doesn't mean that some of this curriculum is not necessary for you. So you can be a head of your organization by getting certified, saying, I want to look to have a career globally in 4 years. So you're already, ahead of the curve by taking such a course. So whether it's understanding recruitment legislations, understanding the whole employment compliance, understand the legislation aspects, workforce, culture, you name it, I think it has everyone for it has a component of the different roles we play in HR to be able to take that and amplify it in a very big way. So for me, it's been extremely useful. The GPHR course, the SPHR is equally, important. We have in Infosys a lot of HR folks who are certified. We've been getting ourselves certified for the last 10 years. And every time we release an internal job posting for assignments in US or anywhere, or Europe, we say, are you GPHR certified? So that is the kind of recognition. This wasn't there a few years back. But today we give weightage, and it's a big selling point to our business leaders. So when we put candidates up and our business leaders are on the panel, they would be asking, hey, is this, we say this person is GPHR certified. So that's a huge head start. So I think multifaceted, India has become a big business hub. Talent equations are changing. Your aspiration for a global role, this is clearly a great pathway. And I think this platform and Simandhar coming together, we can just accelerate that whole journey to get certified. So I'll pause there. And I know there could be questions, but I'll pass it over to Veer. And then we could open the floor up for questions. Unless maybe Veer, you want to open up with a question, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, so I'm fine. I'm fine that if you want to take up this the question first, and then I can talk, whatever the way.
I see a few questions. Maybe we should start, Sangeeta, one or two opening questions and then get back to Veer. Maybe Veer can start with one or two questions. I see a few questions coming up in the chat window.
Yeah.
And of course,
think Sangeeta, we can take up the questions. That would be better, I guess, because that can be more interactive as well. Because
Yeah.
folks can also. So, guys, please put in your questions and raise hands, and we can unmute some of them so that you can directly talk as well. Right, Sangeeta, you can take up the questions.
So, so our first question is, can someone get certified in PHR, get re-accreditation done to PHR, SPHR after getting 4 years experience is completed? Or does that individual have to take the SPHR examination?
I can take that one. I think the answer is no. You're going to have to take the exam, even if you if you try to pass the exam without having the required experience in the auditing process. When you submit your application, you're not going to be able to get through. So we always say that the requirements for the certification are not necessarily there to stop you from taking the exam. It's more about making sure that you're taking what is relevant to you, because you might think, well, I know plenty of HR, but like I said, sometimes it's about the experience. So you need to get to that level. So it's almost a protective thing that we're doing to make sure that you're taking the right examination at the right time.
Siddharth, you're unmuted. You can go ahead. Siddharth, I have unmuted you. I think
That will need to unmute himself.
Yeah, Siddharth, can you just unmute yourself?
I did. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Siddharth, we are able to hear you.
Okay. So my question is, like, when I was going through the PPT, there was a slide where it was showing that after 3 years we have to take the test again to be recertified in this. Where under two certifications, PHR and PHRI, it was showing as NA, and in other two it was showing 15 credits and 30 credits. So how it will go for PHRI and PHR?
Yeah, for the recertification process, like I said, there's two ways that you can get recertified for any of the different certifications. One is to take the exam all over again, but very few people want to do that. One, because it's more expensive, and another because you don't want to study something all over again that you left behind 3 years. So the recertification credits, which is what you were referring to, at the bottom of the screen, what I was showing was the some of the specific credits that you need. For all the different certifications, you're going to need 45 general credits. And those are just credits that you can get, like I was saying, performing your everyday duties in HR, attending conferences, webinars, things like that. But specifically for the SPHRI, you need 15 business credits. And for the GPHR, 15 global credits. Those specific credits do not apply to the PHRI or the APHRI.
And if I could add there, what I've done every year, right? Every 3 years, you have to get certified. So I keep a little tracker. And the easiest way is you can write your job duties and like what JD spoke about. But a lot of webinars of interest, right, will tell you below HRCI credit 1, HRCI credit 2. So I typically know the body of HR, whether it's there are legal courses, there are courses by HRCI, Mercer could be doing a course, Deloitte could be going. There are different bodies that do a lot of webinars, especially in the world of virtual. Based on your role, based on where you want to build your expertise, you can sign up for these webinars, right? And then you can automatically get HRCI credit. So there's a big chunk of it that can happen by making yourself relevant and also keep your body of knowledge current, given the changing regulatory landscape that we're seeing. So a lot of that is also available just through credits, and it's fantastic. It also, helps you with your learning agenda. So I've never really gone back to take the certification, but I've kept my credits intact, and it's a fantastic way to always be staying ahead of what's happening in the landscape of HR.
Thank you. And I have one more question, if I can just add in this. Like when we were seeing the different certifications, basically starting with GPHR, global PHR, and with international PHR. So, what is the basic difference between both of them? Because when we say globally, it itself means international, right? So, do we have some specific difference in terms of topics what we cover in those certifications, or it is just the name which is changing in the certification?
No, for the GPHR, it's going to talk about, and I'm trying to touch on this a little bit, about general practices that no matter where you are in the world are going to apply. So it doesn't matter what the local legislation, what the local labor laws are going to apply. There's something, HR is HR no matter where you are. People are people, organizations are organizations, revenue, business is the same thing. But specifically for the SPHRI and the PHRI, they do ask for some specific content meaningful in your country. That doesn't mean that in the exam you're going to see a question that says, how does the HR policy apply in India? It's not going to talk specifically about laws in India, but in the application process for the SPHRI, one of the requirements is that you need to show evidence that you have taken a labor law class or a labor law course, something that shows that you have that background. And all we're doing is just confirming if you have that background, you can now take the exam that talks about how those local national legislations are going to connect with the overall HR practice. So the difference I would say between the PHRI and SPHRI and the GPHR is that the PHR and SPHRI focus on how to implement HR in one specific location in one country, and the GPHR is going to be about cross-global, cross-country operations.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thanks for the answer.
Ankur, I've just unmuted you. Ankur. Ankur, I think you'll have to unmute from your end. I have unmuted you. Yeah.
Hi everyone, can you able to hear me?
Yes, Ankur.
So I am a second year student pursuing HR from Indian Institute of Management, Ranchi. So it's a dedicated course where basically HR is covered from the first year itself. So right after completing my course, if I am going for the APHR certification, how much value it is going to add to my journey?
I think Veer or Archana, would you like to take up? Because in IIM Ranchi, the program is, I think, from the beginning of the year itself. So how do you want to kind of?
Okay, so Ankur, I'm answering your question. I think what will happen that once you will have this certification and this is coming up, so you will be apart from other your colleague or your students, that those who are studying. And the second thing that at least you will able to know the global context of HR. So maybe I am not aware about the curriculum of your institution, but at least you will be knowing from initial stage that what is expected. And specifically if you are working with a good MNCs, and if you talk on their language, when you suppose after your campus will happen, and once they will the people will come to you, and if you speak on that same language that the HR is practicing, not as a academic language. So so this is the difference between the certification and the curriculum that we study in our college. So it give you some practical information, it give you some which is already in practice. So that I can say that once you will have this badge, so you will be different from your other students. That is one. Second is that you will be knowing the standards, and you will be knowing the more you can say the practiced uh, concept and context you will be talking about. That two things that I'll add.
Thank you so much.
Archana, would you want to add, Archana or JD?
Nothing else to add there, but I'm seeing in the chat some questions or some confusion about the PHRI and the SPHRI and the difference there. Let me emphasize that again. The APHR, PHR, and SPHR are the domestic certifications for the United States. Those certifications do include US legislation for all the 50 states, federal legislation that is implemented in the United States. If you take the exam for those certifications, you're going to have to study US legislation that you're not going to be implemented in India. So it's almost not worth it. But if you take the international versions, APHRI, PHRI, and SPHRI, which are the ones that I just talked about, those do not include any US legislation whatsoever. So you will not have to study, you will not have a single question about federal law or anything like that. And the reason for that is, like I said, is there some specific HR practices that no matter where you are in whatever market, HR is going to be HR. Those same questions appear in the US exam. So the exam in a way is the same thing, it's the same type of perspective. But there might be 50 questions or more, I'm not specific on that do include US legislation for the US exams. So until a few years ago, I could see a lot of Indians taking the US exams, and I was thinking, are they all going to move to the United States and work for American companies, or are they doing HR in India for American companies? If that's the case, wonderful. But otherwise, you're wasting your time and you're getting a certification that is not relevant to you. It would be the equivalent of getting a driver's license that is only applicable in the United States. If you're going to drive in India, you better get the local one.
And I'll just add to that, while that's absolutely the way to classify this. But if your role, right, if your role is such that you have a business headquarter in the US, they have a location in India, and you are responsible for a certain industry line of business, you're having frequent conversations with your US business colleagues or US workforce, or they coming on expat assignments, then depending on how much the content of your role requires a good US understanding, you can take that. So it really looks at the context. And if, let's say, you're aspiring to move to the US, aspiring to move to some other geography, then you can still take the US version. There's no harm in that at all. It really depends on the content of the role that requires which body of knowledge. If you're, because a lot of, almost all big American organizations today have a hub in India in some form of fashion. And if your role expands that, you should feel free to make that decision and think, okay, I want to go with the US version of it, depending on the content of your role. Or something like JD said, if it's more fungible, more international, general view where you're not sure, but you want to get a global certification, you can definitely do the international version.
Yeah,
So you have.
I was going to say, there's nothing that prevents you from having both certifications. As a matter of fact, many people take the PHR and then they take the SPHR and then they take the GPHR and they have the three certifications. I have the APHR for the United States and the APHRI, the international version of that, because I want to make sure that I understand the difference in the market. One of the things that I didn't talk about because it's really not relevant, but we have a specific certification for the state of California. And the reason for that is because California in itself has very different legislation from the rest of the United States. So there are some cases in which people take the SPHR exam, and if they work in California, they're going to take the PHR California. So let's say that you're working in India today, and a year from now, you're going to start working with an American company in California. Even if you have the SPHR exam, even if you have one of the international exams, if you're going to work in California, you better take the PHR California, because the world is going to be upside down because the legislation is so different. So there's a specific tool for every specific case, and this is exactly what I'm trying to recommend.
I think one question we have for Veer, Bharat. So this question is for Veer. Like you mentioned, this certification will help you to understand the concepts or practices better. But please tell me, I can still learn that OTJ.
OJT,
I
on
think
job training, I think she's referring. No problem. I'll take up. So let me open with my opening remarks also. Okay, and then I think it will include the answer that she's looking for. Okay, so to start with, the one thing that I'd like to share with all of you, why I have done this certification and what it helped me. So it is about that, I was working as a HR from past more than maybe 10 years or more than that. Once I have come through and gone through whole process, so I would able to know that where is the gap. Okay, And somebody is referring OJT. I'm saying that it's not about the fresher, but I'm saying that the people who have more experience may not practicing the way that it should be practiced, or the way that the HR should be expected to perform. They are not doing, but they are just doing the administrative and the transactional job. So once you will go through this whole course and content, then you will able to know that what is the actual expectation from HR to the business. Okay. And so I think Madhuri is asking for some example. So example is like, for example, no, I'm practicing learning and development as a practice. Okay. And we talk about the training need analysis. Okay. But in today's world, this training need analysis is something which is irrelevant. Why I'm saying this, and I think Archana has touched upon that point on the agility and the business hub. So what you do in TNA, or what you do, make a list of trainings that you need to deliver, and then you make it and give it to the your people within 6 months or 1 year of time. But have you thought of that, the by the time that you are giving this training, it is irrelevant, because the market is changing so fast. So you should be something which is very agile in nature, which addressing your business needs. Okay. So those kind of you know thought process, or those kind of, I'm just quoting one example, there are various examples that you can take up, and you can correlate that how it is important to address those. So I'm not saying that that the way that you are thinking is incorrect, but everybody is not fortunate to have those company, those who actually practicing right kind of HR processes. Okay. So yes, maybe if you are going and working in a good company during OJT, and if you are getting a that kind of work or profile, that it definitely will help you. Coming to the the my other other remarks is that what is the benefit of this certification. I'm referring irrespective of which certification you are doing, either it is APHR or PHRI or GPHR or SPHRI. It will help you to identify the gap between the desired practices and the current HR practices. How should be the HR look like? What are the functions that you are doing? I'm saying that there are many practices that we are doing today may not require, because it's not going, it is not helping my business to get some outcome. So in that case, what will happen, you will know that the current HR practices is going to it is not going to help you. So how you should shift from that practices to the desired practices, which can help your organization to grow and get the competitive advantage. The other benefits of these certification that I feel is that you become relevant, and what is globally required, that you understand. Even if you are not practicing, then also you know that okay, these are the things that we need to include in our work practices. So either you can take it the the ethical requirements of HR, either you can take it the role of HR in productivity and technology development or innovation management. There are many other aspects that you can correlate. Okay. Then other thing that you can also get it from this certification is that you as you know that these are the practices that we can think of or work upon, and you can advise your business that if you suppose if you are not doing uh, uh, the succession planning, or if you are not doing the performance improvement plan that you are making or something. I'm just referring 2 or 3 examples. So by this way you will able to advise your business that these are the practices which how it can help the business. Because one thing that is I'm very sure that the design and the architecture of the whole the course or the certification is, it's not only talk about the HR, it's talk about the relationship between the HR and the business, and how you align yourself with the business, that define that you are a successful HR or not. So this way that it can help you. And lastly, I'll summarize with my the submission is that if you compare the other certification that is available in India, and I'm talking the Indian perspective, so there are very few which has the global context. I'm not saying that those are bad or those are not good, but the global context is missing. They are more focused on the labor laws. They are more focused on some other area, which I'm not saying that it is not important, but which you may be already studying, and you have already come up from the university or the college that where you are coming from. But the relationship, the understanding of the relationship between the business and the HR, which definitely this certification is going to help you. That helped me also. And the second thing is that it it gives you the global context or global perspective of looking into the HR practices. Thank you.
I see some questions from Dhananjay. I think they came first in. Do we have Dhananjay on the call? If you want to go ahead and ask your questions.
Yeah, Dhananjay is there. So I'll just take up that question. So without HR, can a company define?
That's what I couldn't fully get it. Dhananjay, we see you online. Will you be able to ask your full question?
Or if you can raise hands, Dhananjay, that would be better.
Okay. It is a follow-up to the previous
Yeah,
question.
I think we have just raised a hand. Yeah, Dhananjay, I've unmuted you. Dhananjay, I've unmuted you. Can kindly unmute at your end? Yeah, Dhananjay, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Dhananjay, we are able to hear you. Please go ahead. Dhananjay, we are able to hear you. Hello. Okay. I think meanwhile we can take one more question, Archana, what we have. So why Infosys has good HR practices?
Because we have GPHR certification.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct answer.
See, Jerry, now I get a score in my GPHR exam.
Very
Yeah,
certification, huh?
I think why HR has Infosys, of course, it's a large, company by scale. But I think we've always stayed ahead by, encouraging the HR team members to constantly invest in learning. If you look at Mr. Murthy, learning is integral to Infosys. The same is true for HR. If you can imagine, 2011, I got my GPHR, and there were 20 of us in 2010 and 11, almost a decade back, more than a decade back now, where we all, almost 20 of us are trained in GPHR. And first, the leadership took those tests, and we got certified, and each of us pushed our teams to take it. So it created a multiplier effect in the organization. I think, and of course, I think we still need to encourage people to keep up the recertifying. Everybody took the exam, and I think we had a 95% pass rate for GPHR within Infosys. 95%. I can't think of anybody who didn't clear the GPHR at Infosys. So we created groups of mentors. We, looked at what HRCI had, and now we keep ourselves, going through the credits, going through the webinars, and I keep my certificate intact. So that gives a very good global recognition. And 10 years back, when we realized we are going to have a lot more cross border and things like that, a lot of the folks in HR need to constantly get themselves certified. That creates a certain standard. It creates also a certain, like, it's not very heavy in India, but if you look at the accounting bodies, right, they have a certain standard which is regulatory for the function. So nobody always questions the credentials of an auditor or a CPA. So that way, I think the need to constantly, get yourself certified, keep that learning curve. It's all the more important in a very disruptive world today, right? So, and I'll let JD or Veer answer that as well if they want to add anything from that perspective.
What are some good HR goals? JD, Bharat, Archana. I think Dhanya have raised hand, so I'll just kind of.
I
Something
think
that
HR goals is something which should be linked with your business goal. No? So I
exactly.
cannot say that HR goals is something that you can make it by yourself. So ultimate goal is for the HR is to support business, and if your what your business demand is, that define your HR goal. So if suppose the expansion is the demand of your business, so the expansion could become a goal of HR. But ultimately, if you'll ask me that, irrespective of the business or the, you can say, the organization, the one thing that I feel is the managing talent, and how you are managing the talent. That is something which is, I think, common for all the organizations. Okay, so that you can take as a, if you ask me irrespective of business, so managing talent and how you are managing the talent to become more competitive in market or in your, industry or business, that is something which I can say that you can take it as a goal.
So
Yeah, go ahead,
Dhanya, I
Jyoti.
have just unmuted you. Dhanya, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It was a very nice introduction from you all. I had lots of, I needed lots of clarification. It got clarified. But still, I have a small doubt since I'm a senior professional in HR. I have around 10 plus of experience. So, how well or how appropriately, whether it is SPHRI or GPHR, how it will be helping me in my career and which will be more apt for me. Currently, I'm in India. I'm certainly looking for global options also, but currently I'm working in India. So I need something which will help me in my profession, which will take me higher up, which will let me acquire more knowledge too. So I would like to have some suggestions from you.
Want me to take first stab at that, JDV?
Yeah, ma'am, please.
So thanks, Danya. Thanks for that feedback. It always, makes us feel good. So Danya, the way I would, what I would let you, how you, for what I would guide you to think through is twofold. If you have a visibility that your role is going to have a context or a business environment that is very US centric, right? That's where you want to gravitate to. I don't know the company you represent or what is the kind of role you're seeking to, but if you have a visibility that the role that you are going to be exploring is more US centric, has some US component, go for the US certification, right, from where you are. If that visibility is not there, right, that is going to be a US kind of a environment or US based company, a good starting point would be to go ahead and look at the international HR, which has a global appeal, which will have a global landscape. It could appeal to multiple companies. Both have equally, the same lens or framework of HR. The only distinction is the legislative framework, which is very US specific. And then again, if you're very intrigued by US, and I think, see, the US, the legislative framework is fairly complex and is very technical. It is very robust, and it's always good to have that landscape. So depending on where you want to gravitate, you can choose either of this. But that's my view. But I'll let JD and Veer add to that.
Yeah, so
I
one thing
would
that,
say,
just add one line to Dhani is that, as I think earlier also it is mentioned that what is your, goal is, and which context you are, working right now. So for me, considering what you have mentioned, that you are working in India and looking for going abroad, so you can start it with the SPHRI, and maybe later on you can go for the GPHR. That I'm just giving you the short answer. Yeah, JD, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to make the same exact point. Is if you know where you are right now, you know exactly what you need to get based on the different certifications that I mentioned. But what is your perspective? What are you trying to get? And I know that it's difficult times. We never know what the world is going to look like in a year or two. But if you think that you're going to be working in a multinational corporation, the GPHR is always going to be the best option. It is exactly matching what that is. If you're going to go abroad, the GPHR is also going to be one of those. But if you want to just be in a senior position in India right now, and you think that that's your next level, that's your next goal, the SPHRI is what you want to go for.
I would like to add on to the same, since I just got a small clarification again. But still, if I go for SPHRI right now, does it have a global, I mean, does it give me an opportunity in abroad if I go by for that also? Or it's like I am forced, whether the value is only for India?
No, the SPHRI is the same exam in India that it is in Japan, that it is in Saudi Arabia. So you can take the SPHRI with you, and the person in Saudi Arabia, in Japan, has taken the same exam. There's not going to be a difference.
Fine. So the credential is valuable everywhere.
Yeah,
yes,
then I don't want to take the name, but just go to indeed.com and type SPHRI or SPHR, and you will find that what are the countries they are looking for these credentials people. You'll be able to know.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. If you go to LinkedIn and you just type any of the credentials that I mentioned, APHRI, SPHRI, PHRI, or GPHR, you will see thousands of profiles that come up, and you will see that those people are all over the world. So that's how to say this. That's a third-party, neutral, objective database that can show you where people are located. This is not HRCI telling you. This is they themselves saying, "I'm certified and I am in XYZ country."
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Tanya, like I told you, like the Infosys example, right? Even in our internal job posting programs, where we are always rotating people across countries, whether it's a job posting in the US or a job posting in Europe, we say, do you have an international certification, PHR or SP? Typically, we move mid-level folks. So we say SPHR and above, or GPHR. So we give a huge weightage. The candidate has at least the 30% weightage. So it also encourages people to go and register for the summer, fall or winter exams very, very quickly. So we also give credits, huge weightage in the internal job posting programs for HR folks within Infosys for such assignments.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Shani, I have unmuted you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Ishani, we can hear you.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is Ishani and I am actually based out of Atlanta. I work for Infosys with Archana's team. The main reason I joined this, I wanted to ask a question from her, even though I'm part of her team. Very rarely we get time to spend with her. So my question to you, Archana, is, being a talent acquisition professional, what would you suggest the best certification from HRCI for talent acquisition and talent management?
Sure. No, thanks, Ishani. Great. We are connecting on this platform. Folks, I do meet my team. Don't go back. Okay. I'm doing webinars if I'm not meeting there. Right. But we have a very big team in the Americas. So Ishani and I keep also telling this to my team as well, that even though we play specialist roles in HR, I could be an employee relations person, I could be a talent acquisition person, or I could be a compensation person or a business partner HR. These certificates are very, very fungible across the landscape of HR. So even though I'm recruiting, I still, while I have a lot of questions around what is the talent acquisition section, I'm still responsible for knowing what is compensation, how do I make an offer, what is benefits, what are the background check failures which I have to talk to employee relations. So Ishani, the starting point, depending on how intense and where you are, you could do the SPHR. But if you want to first test waters and start light, go light, do the PHR, definitely the US version. So okay, that's great. Yeah. So yeah.
I was going to mention, as you were saying that, notice the first one, talent acquisition, and notice the third one, talent management and development. So this is the PHRI, which is very similar to the exam content outline for the PHR since you're in the United States. So, you know, it's very much matching what you're asking for.
Yeah, just I'd like to add one thing for Isani question, that Isani, don't, what I feel is that don't, you should not, keep yourself for one area. Okay. So maybe today you are doing a role of talent acquisition, but maybe in future you could be doing some other area that you would be taking for. So definitely you should consider this certification is not very specific to one area, but yes, as JD mentioned about that, it includes a lot of weightage on from those area. So yes, you can go for the PHRI or even the SPHRI, depend on the number of years experience. And as Archana mentioned that if you want to just test it, so you can go for the PHRI first or PHR first.
Thank you, guys.
We have a question on YouTube, guys. How to handle attrition?
We need another webinar.
So Mr. Ronak has asked that
Broad question. I think, see the, I mean, this is, I think take a, first answer, please take a PHR course. It has a lot of, inputs on talent management. I think, especially just to speak about attrition, we always are looking at attrition from a multicultural workforce, right? If your role requires and you're having attrition with different countries, different contexts, it will help you a little. But almost every module of any of these curriculums will tell you how you hire, how you set expectations right, or if you're able to brand and get the right quality of people within the door. A whole talent acquisition has a role to play, how you understand comp and benefits and are able to set the expectation. So there are many different strokes for different folks on attrition. But in terms of how this curriculum can leverage you, I think, a good, and I keep Ishani is also part of it, is a large part of attrition can also happen by, getting the qualified candidate right up front. So if you look at 3 or 4 attrition reasons, they're always, environment mismatch, job mismatch, candidate mismatch, compensation mismatch. So the first starting point is there could be 30% leakage at the talent acquisition function. 30% of attrition leakage can be prevented at talent acquisition phase. Then there is 20% com, benefits, careers, etc., which is HR. Then the line manager, environment, culture. So these are the 3 broad buckets of attrition. So when you look into understanding your attrition in the context of your organization, having this total view to HR is very important to see where is my role and what can I do to mitigate the attrition leakage. Any company you go, all these 3 buckets, you're going to have attrition leakage. This is a voluntary attrition. I'm not talking of involuntary attrition,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
just to give
And
you an answer,
yeah, and just to add, I think the way that Infosys is managing, and you mentioned that the requirement of the certification is almost 95% you mentioned. So I think that is the thing that it is giving you the edge, that all the people working in any function, they understand the linkage and connection, why it is important, what the next person is, how I am as a, for example, talent acquisition, I am important. For example, if I am managing the talent or even working in L&D function, then how it's important. So I think all the people speaks the same language and understand it. So that is also one benefit that you are getting, Archana. Am I right?
So I
yes,
think Kamlesh answer is more from the perspective of a startup. So he writes, I am a startup and continuously faces the attrition at various levels. How do we manage a particular resource properly? So I think that's more from the startup perspective. If we can highlight some of the points there, GD
yeah. So
or Bharat.
yeah, I can speak because we do have companies like Infosys. We also have startups. We have product companies. We have smaller platform companies, etc. So the most important piece in attrition for a startup company is the profile of workforce that you're getting in. Right? They are designers, coders, innovators, etc. So how you attract the right kind of talent for a startup based organization, recognizing what skills make is the first piece, right? But if you don't profile the right people of coming to a startup culture is first very important. So first is getting the qualified pool correct and matching it to the needs of the organization. If you're very small, you take somebody from Amazon or Google and try to fit them in, it may not fully work. So understanding the size of your own startup, what are similar startups, or getting them from mainstream tech companies, and doing that match. Most biggest challenge in startup is the candidate organization mismatch today. That's happening. So that's, if you recognize that. The second piece is startups want that kind of work culture. It's cool place to be, it's highly reward, people want instant recognition, it's the beanbag culture, etc. So that is the general, view of what startup people's, that mental mindset is startup is cool, right? So now, what are the policies and the practices that are your company is there to, you can get the person in, but then how is he able to demonstrate that whole HR policies which are cool? So there is that bit of leakage mismatch happening there. The third, which will finally be what is sustainable, is the work they do. Is the work they do developmental? Are they knowing what they are building? Are they curating something? So these are three buckets of startup companies, which if you look to see what is it that you can control out of this, either you can give the work, you can say, I'm building something in 6 months, you're the designer, people get excited about creating the outcome. So depending on what you can't obviously be a Google or a Amazon day one in practices, you have to get revenue to be relevant. Depending on what is your sweet spot, which is causing attrition, underplay the kind of profile of people you're having. Whatever is in your sweet spot of the lever, play on one. You can't be everything. Like it's, you can't be great on policies, great on the cutting edge of technology, great on getting the best. Depending on one tower, if you get right, that can, I don't know the causes for these attritions, how much you're hiring, what is the scale, but startups have these three buckets. How do they brand themselves? Are they seen as a startup in the marketplace? So I don't know if
Yeah.
that helps get you a
Yeah,
lens to
yeah.
look at
So
So I
Archana,
think one
just to
question.
add to your last point, I think the last point that you have touched upon, if I can, make it more simple, that are the people, those who are working with you, is connected with the purpose that you have.
yes, that's right,
If they are
absolutely.
connected, then only they will go along with you. Else, what will happen, that if they are working just as an employee, so maybe they will get a more best or better employer. But if they are connected with your purpose, then I think they will go along with you for a longer time.
Beautifully kept, Bharat.
Yeah.
We
That
have
was
a
that
question.
was the buzzword I was missing.
Yeah, mission and vision. So Shriram has a question. I worked in a small firm for 9 months and went for a swap in vertical movement in an MNC and came back for pursuing professional course. So now those 9 months counted as HR or need to work in a recognized MNC firms or companies and designated as HR in the mentioned above business.
Jerry, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah. So
It's in the webinar chat, JD.
at the end of the day, when you are the one who's going to know best if what you were doing was HR or not. The reason why we ask for specific experience in HR is, again, it's a matter of protecting you to make sure that what you're going to encounter in the exam is going to be something that you're familiar with. These are not just questions that you can read a book and you're done. These are questions that are going to put you in a situation in which, if you have not experienced that, you're going to be confused. You're not going to understand where this is coming from. It's almost like asking somebody about how to respond in a case of combat in war. Unless you've been in that situation, you're not going to know what to do, even if a book tells you what to do. It's going to be very specific. So at the end of the day, you're going to be the one who knows best if what you were doing was HR or not. In the application process, when you're submitting your application for HR, for every year of experience that you're submitting, you're going to have to explain in what organization, what position were you holding, and what was it that you were doing. And if the auditor who is reviewing your application sees that that's not something that actually involves HR, it's going to have to connect with you to ask you, tell me exactly what you were doing. So be honest with yourself and realize where you're put within the requirements. just because you were doing something different in the organization, if you were in HR, but you were not doing HR, you cannot really count that as HR. If you were doing HR and for 9 months you were performing something that was more in the sales department or finance department, that was not HR. So you cannot count those 9 months as part of the additional year in HR. So again, I think the decision ultimately is up to you to decide was what you were doing HR or not.
So one question come from Rohit. He says that at times we are hiring people, and when we hire the right talent, they again leave it in 2 months to 3 months time frame. What is the right policy to retain the talent again? So I think that's more in line with attrition, I guess. But
Yes.
Veer, do you want to add on something on this?
No, I think Archana has explained it in detail that attrition is something which is not there is one function is involved. The whole the context of HR that we know, for example, starting from the talent acquisition to onboarding to managing the talent and the performance appraisal and everything that we know. Apart from that, the overall culture of the organization and fitment with the culture is also very important. So suppose when you are hiring a person, so you should not look only the technical competencies or aptitude aspect, but also you need to see that the person is going to fit with your culture or not. That is very important. And other thing that you can do, market study that you can do, what salary that you are offering, and what is there into market with same size of company, what other competitor can offer, all these things that you can do. But the basic is that if you are hiring a person, so you should very sure that this person is going to fit with your culture or not. So as Archana also given the example of the startup and the big company. So what is the difference? This is the difference, that the culture is there, something which you are working on only one aspect, whereas in a startup you may require to work in whole, you have to develop and deliver the things. So those fitment you should look before hiring a person.
Siddharth, we are not able to. I think Siddharth, they did answer that, right? I think Siddharth have put in the webinar chat, Archana, JD. One more question on how the GPHR certification is different from SHRM certification when it comes to the international level recognition for HR profession as such.
Right. I think, and that's a really good, relevant question. I would say, as far as I know, SHRM does not have a certification that has the same purpose that the GPHR has, meaning for cross-border HR, just like SHRM doesn't have a certification for entry level like the APHRI. My understanding is that the certifications that they offer have been around for 4 or 5 years. The GPHR has been around for almost 20 years now. So, that gives you a level of the recognition and the meaning that certification specifically has. I think at the end of the day, again, is what is it that you're trying to do today, and what do you see yourself in your HR career in a few years? With those things clear, you're going to be a lot more in a better position to identify what is going to be working best for you. And I always say, SHRM is a relevant organization in the HR environment worldwide. Absolutely. It's a membership organization. We are not. We are just solely dedicated to the certification and to the education of HR professionals through the different resources and programs that we offer. So choose what is best for you, and maybe it's both. Maybe it's being a member of SHRM and being an HRCI certified. I always say, everything has a purpose in life.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to for Siddharth's question is that it's very easy for you to identify the differences. Just go and read the outline, okay, and you will able to know. This is available on website. Either it is, if you want to know the GPHR exam or content outline, you can go and read it on hrci.org. And if you want to know the SHRM, SCP, and also you can go and read on their website, and you will easily able to identify the difference between these two. So as far as my understanding is, SHRM talks about, if you are referring the SCP course, it's on the strategic aspect, whereas the GPHR is it's a global context. So if you are handling multiple HR, multiple region HR, and talks about the cultural integration. If we talk about the global compensation, if we talk about the global talent management, so all these things cover under the GPHR, whereas the in SHRM SCP it is specific to the strategic aspect, not the global aspect. It does not mean that it does not qualify the international level of the knowledge, but the context is different.
Okay. I think that's all we had from Q&As. It has been a comprehensive 1.5 hour of session. So we started at 6:30, made it extremely interactive with so many questions. Still, we had a lot of participants. We did try to cover each and every question. Thank you so much, all the
Uh,
participants.
Sorry to interrupt in between. This is Siddharth here.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Siddharth.
I'm really sorry. Like I have so many questions and I'm asking again and again. I'm
No,
really
no,
sorry for the
absolutely
trouble.
fine.
Just one question. Like I just want to take a suggestion from you people, as you people have been so experienced in all this and you have been working from so long in HR field, that too at global level. So I have been like working into HR field from last 5 years. Now, when I look for the certification and I'm targeting countries like Canada and Australia to work and go and work there. So, what certification should I go with? SHR, SPHRI, or it should be GPHR? So, if you can just guide me there, that will be a great help for me.
My personal view there, if you're clear, it is going to be in the US and Canada. I would first recommend that you look at the SPHR, because that is a good middle level. It's not too light, but it is a good middle level curriculum, which is a little intense, covers everything. Of course, Canada has its own certifications, but it's a good legislative way to look at the SPHR, the US version. So if you can do that, that is good. And then later, once you really get into Canada, you can look at other local certificate. But to me, I have hold highest regard with SPHR. I've always recommended SPHR very, very strongly, because it's a good, intense, good curriculum. Unless you want to get a global thing, start with the SPHR if you're clear, to get a working knowledge of what is the body of knowledge. And this is more from a practitioner standpoint, but I'll let JD, speak as well.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Australia, both Australia and Canada have their own national certifications. Now that my understanding is that you need those certifications, or they're not even required, it's not mandatory, but those are the certifications that are recognized at the national level to work in HR. But if you're thinking of working in multiple countries, definitely get one of the international certifications that we've been discussing today, because those are going to be, they're going to help you to put you in a position in which you can navigate both of those different countries with a kind of a comprehensive HR approach.
And the other thing is, see, I wouldn't delay too much, right? You can start light or you can go. But if you're clear that you're looking for a global HR role, you can jump straight into the SPHR. It's a good, balanced, technical, good kind of framework that can really create, make a strong HR, you'll have a strong HR command. Let me say that if you're clearly know you're moving, SPHR is always the go-to place for a good command of the international HR landscape.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time and the suggestion. I'll surely think about it and I'll do bit of studies as well, and then I'll decide. Thank you for guiding me.
So thank you so much, Siddharth. Thank you so much, panelists. I think this was a fantastic 1.5 hour. I know we have surpassed the time by 2 minutes. So sorry for that, JD, Archana, and Bharat, because we expected that it will be at 8. And so apologies, just that we are, I guess we have exceeded the time. But thank you so much for giving your valuable time. And the most important thing is educating about the certifications, which are so important today, because a lot of the HR professionals are not much aware also about what is there in the certifications now. So I think this webinar will be a kind of will help them in order to understand what is required in order to get certified. So I think that was a great 1.5 hour of session about Infosys, about Yamaha Motors. We have added a lot of mission in that. So I would say that is our key takeaways. And over to you, Sangeeta, then. Thank you so much, JD, Archana, Bharat.
Thank you, Sripal, for inviting us, and thank you, Simandhar Education, for really making this session to make aware the HR professional.
Thanks a lot, Bharat.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, JD. We, the entire Simandhar family, once again like to thank you that you take out your time and shared your knowledge regarding HRCI certifications. It was great having you here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry, Veer,
Thank you,
Simandhar,
thank
and
you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
thanks.
Thanks, Jyoti. Thanks, Archana. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. So you can also share in your Q&As if you have any after the session. You can email us, right? info@simandhareducation.com. We're all also on LinkedIn. So you can find us on LinkedIn at Simandhar Education, and Shripal Jain and Sangeeta, Archana, Veer, Bharat, and JD are all on LinkedIn. So you can also connect with them individually. And have a great time, guys. Thank you so much. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.